The world stands on the brink of a significant economic confrontation as the United States, under President Donald Trump, initiates a new era of aggressive trade policy against its closest allies, the European Union and Mexico. This move, characterized by sweeping new tariffs, threatens to unravel decades of economic integration and foster a period of global instability. Facts. Tariff implementation. On Saturday, July 12, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that a 30% tariff will be imposed on all goods imported from both the European Union and Mexico, effective August 1, 2025. These new tariffs are in addition to any existing sector-specific levies. Broader tariff warnings. This measure follows earlier tariff warnings issued by Trump to over 20 other nations, including Japan, South Korea, Brazil, 50%, the Philippines, 20%, and Canada, with proposed duties ranging from 20% to 50%. Stated justifications. Mexico. Trump cited Mexico's alleged failure to adequately curb drug trafficking, particularly fentanyl, into the U.S. and pointed to unsustainable trade deficits and non-tariff policies and trade barriers. He acknowledged Mexico's efforts in border security but insisted it was not enough. European Union. Trump accused the EU of persistent trade deficits and long-standing protectionist policies, describing the trade relationship as far from reciprocal. He stated the 30% rate, while far less than what is needed to close the trade gap, is a first step towards balanced and fair trade. No tariff conditions. Trump has offered a pathway to avoid tariffs if companies from these regions choose to manufacture or build products within the United States, promising expedited approvals. Retaliation warning. Trump explicitly warned that if the EU or Mexico retaliate with their own tariffs, any such increase would be added on top of the 30% already imposed by the U.S. EU and Mexico's response. Both the EU and Mexico have condemned the proposed tariffs as unfair and disruptive. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stated the tariffs would disrupt essential transatlantic supply chains, to the detriment of businesses, consumers, and patients on both sides of the Atlantic. She reaffirmed the EU's commitment to negotiation but warned that the bloc would take all necessary steps to safeguard EU interests, including the adoption of proportionate countermeasures if required. The EU had already prepared a retaliatory package worth €21 billion, which was previously suspended. An emergency meeting of EU diplomats was convened. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum called for a cool head and expressed confidence in reaching an agreement, but also firmly stated, "There's something that's never negotiable, the sovereignty of our country." Mexico's government labeled the move unfair treatment and initiated negotiations. Previous tariff history. This marks a re-escalation of trade tensions similar to Trump's first term. Earlier in 2025, the Trump II administration had already imposed 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, which prompted EU countermeasures. Statements and story. The latest salvo in President Trump's America First trade agenda was fired from his social media platform, Truth Social, in a series of direct letters to the leaders of Mexico and the European Commission. The narrative spun by the White House is one of rectifying long-standing economic injustices and defending national security, particularly against the influx of illicit drugs from Mexico and what is perceived as a fundamentally unbalanced trade relationship with the EU. For Mexico, the message is stark: what Mexico has done is not enough to stop the cartels. This ties the economic punitive measure directly to a deeply contentious issue of border security and drug enforcement, placing immense pressure on the new Mexican administration under President Sheinbaum. The implication is clear: economic leverage will be used to enforce U.S. domestic policy priorities, blurring the lines between trade, security, and sovereignty. With the European Union, Trump's language reflects a familiar frustration from his previous term, a deep-seated belief that the EU benefits unfairly from the transatlantic trade relationship. The demand for reciprocal trade underpins his rhetoric, suggesting a transactional view of alliances where economic balance supersedes historical cooperation. Von der Leyen's immediate and sharp retort, highlighting the disruption to supply chains and the potential harm to shared businesses and consumers, underscores the palpable anxiety in Brussels. The EU, having navigated similar pressures before, is now forced to confront the dilemma of protecting its own industries while trying to preserve a critical geopolitical partnership. The story here is one of economic nationalism taking precedence over diplomatic norms, a high-stakes gamble where the U.S. is willing to risk a broader trade war to force concessions. The global economy, still recovering from previous shocks and facing ongoing geopolitical instability in Ukraine and Gaza, now faces yet another layer of uncertainty. Companies on both sides of the Atlantic are left scrambling to understand the implications for their supply chains, pricing strategies, and long-term investments. Probable reactions this could have on the world. Global economic slowdown and recession risks. Increased costs for consumers. Tariffs are taxes paid by importers, often passed on to consumers. A 30% tariff would significantly increase the cost of a wide range of imported goods in the U.S., leading to higher inflation. Disrupted supply chains. Businesses rely on intricate global supply chains. Sudden, high tariffs force companies to quickly find new suppliers, relocate production, as Trump suggests, or absorb massive cost increases, leading to inefficiencies, delays, and potential insolvencies. Reduced trade volumes. High tariffs act as barriers, reducing the overall volume of goods and services traded internationally. This directly hits export-dependent economies and lowers global economic activity. Market volatility. Financial markets are likely to react with increased volatility and uncertainty, potentially leading to sell-offs, reduced investment, and a flight to safer assets. Impact on specific sectors. Industries heavily reliant on transatlantic or U.S.-Mexico trade, such as automotive, agriculture, pharmaceuticals, machinery, and luxury goods, like French wine and cheese, would be severely hit, potentially leading to job losses and reduced innovation. Retaliation and escalation of trade war. Tit-for-tat tariffs. The EU and Mexico are highly likely to impose their own retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods, as hinted by von der Leyen and previous actions. This tit-for-tat escalation could spiral into a full-blown trade war, hurting all parties involved. WTO challenges. Affected countries could challenge the U.S. tariffs at the World Trade Organization, WTO, though the WTO's dispute resolution mechanism has been hampered by past U.S. actions, e.g., blocking appointments to its appellate body. Weakening of alliances and geopolitical fragmentation. Damage to transatlantic relations. This aggressive economic posture significantly strains the historically strong relationship between the U.S. and Europe, which is crucial for coordinating responses to global challenges like Russia, China, and climate change.